Welcome to my channel Soft Feminine. I wasn't supposed to be standing there. That's the first thought that slammed into my head as I stared at the mirror, my hands frozen at my sides, my heartbeat loud enough to drown out everything else. The room felt smaller somehow, like the walls were leaning in, watching me see something I wasn't ready to admit. The reflection staring back at me looked wrong. And yet, painfully right. The clothes clung to my body in a way nothing ever had before. The fabric was soft, almost gentle, brushing against my skin like it belonged there. My shoulders looked different. My posture had changed without permission. Even my face, still mine, carried an expression I didn't recognize. Wide eyes. Slightly parted lips. Shock mixed with curiosity. "This is insane," I whispered, my voice shaky, unfamiliar in the quiet room. I took a step closer to the mirror. So did she. My breath caught when I realized I wasn't disgusted. I wasn't even laughing. I was staring. Studying every detail like my life depended on it. The curve of the outfit. The way my body responded to it. The strange calm spreading through my chest, pushing past the fear. My mind screamed at me to stop. Take it off. Pretend this never happened. Go back to normal. But my hands didn't move. Instead, I lifted one slowly, fingers trembling. The reflection mirrored me perfectly, and something about that simple motion sent a shiver down my spine. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was acting. I felt like I was revealing something. "What am I doing?" I muttered. The answer came quietly, from somewhere deep inside. "You're looking at yourself." That's when panic finally hit. What if someone saw me like this? What if this wasn't just curiosity? What if I liked it? My heart raced faster, guilt twisting in my stomach, but underneath it all was a dangerous thought I couldn't shake. I didn't want to look away. And that terrified me more than anything. The next morning, I woke up like nothing had happened. At least, that's what I told myself. The alarm rang, sharp and unforgiving, pulling me out of a restless sleep. For a split second, before memory kicked in, I felt peaceful. Then my eyes drifted to the chair in the corner of my room, and my stomach dropped. The clothes were still there. Folded neatly. Innocently. Like they hadn't just cracked something open inside me. I sat up slowly, rubbing my face, trying to ground myself in routine. Shower. Toothbrush. Same old jeans. Same old shirt. I stared at myself in the bathroom mirror, searching for signs, anything, that proved last night wasn't real. But something was different. My eyes didn't meet my reflection the same way. I felt like I was wearing armor instead of clothes, like I was stepping back into a role I'd memorized long ago. My shoulders felt tense. My movements stiff. The confidence I usually pretended to have felt hollow. "Get it together," I muttered. Outside, the world carried on like it always had. Traffic. Noise. People rushing past with their own lives, their own secrets. I wondered, briefly, how many of them were hiding something too. At work, the feeling followed me. Every laugh sounded sharper. Every conversation felt like it might turn toward me at any moment. When someone glanced in my direction, my heart jumped, irrationally afraid they could see it. See her. See the truth tucked away beneath my skin. "Morning," a coworker said as I passed. "Hey," I replied too quickly. I sat at my desk, fingers hovering over the keyboard, unable to focus. My mind replayed the mirror over and over again. The way I'd stood. The way I'd felt. The way my reflection hadn't judged me, not once. "Are you okay?" another voice asked. I looked up. "Yeah. Just tired." A lie. But an easy one. The kind I'd been telling my whole life. During lunch, I caught myself watching people differently. The way some of them moved so freely, unaware of how carefully I was monitoring every gesture, every expression. I noticed clothes I'd never paid attention to before. Colors. Fabrics. Confidence stitched into posture rather than fabric. A strange envy crept in. Not jealousy. Longing. By the time I got home, the weight in my chest had doubled. I closed the door behind me and leaned against it, exhaling like I'd been holding my breath all day. This is ridiculous, I thought. I should throw them away. Burn the thought. Forget it ever happened. I took one step toward the chair. Then stopped. My hand hovered over the folded fabric, trembling, not with fear this time, but hesitation. Because deep down, I knew something terrifying. If I put them away, I wasn't just hiding clothes. I was hiding myself. That night, routine lost its grip on me. I ate without tasting. Scrolled without seeing. My thoughts circled the same question, over and over, growing louder with each pass. Why did it feel so right? When I finally stood up and reached for the clothes again, it didn't feel like rebellion. It felt like relief. That night, I didn't rush. For the first time, I let myself slow down and feel everything instead of fighting it. I turned the lock on my bedroom door with deliberate care, the soft click echoing louder than it should have. The world outside that room no longer mattered. Inside, it was just me, and the truth I'd been avoiding. I laid everything out on the bed carefully, almost reverently. Each piece of clothing felt heavier now, not physically, but emotionally. Like it carried meaning I was only beginning to understand. My fingers brushed over the fabric, and I noticed how gentle my touch had become, as if instinctively I knew this deserved respect. I swallowed hard. Just trying, I whispered to myself. That's all. I undressed slowly, every movement deliberate, aware of my own breathing. When I stepped into the clothes again, the sensation was different from the first night. The shock was gone. In its place was awareness. Consciousness. My skin reacted instantly, nerves lighting up in ways they never had before. The fabric hugged me, not tightly, but knowingly. I straightened without thinking. My shoulders relaxed. My hips shifted subtly, naturally, like my body remembered something my mind had long forgotten. I walked to the mirror. This time, I didn't flinch. I tilted my head. Studied my reflection from different angles. The person staring back at me wasn't pretending. She wasn't mocking me. She wasn't judging me. She looked curious, vulnerable, real. My heart pounded as I lifted my hands and adjusted small details, smoothing fabric, fixing alignment, paying attention to symmetry. Each tiny correction brought a quiet spark of satisfaction. I wasn't chasing perfection. I was discovering comfort. I look different, I murmured. Not better. Not worse. Just different. I experimented next, not wildly, but cautiously. I shifted my weight from one foot to the other. Let my arms rest differently at my sides. I practiced walking slowly across the room, feeling how the clothes moved with me instead of against me. There was a moment, small, but powerful, when I caught myself smiling. Not forcing it. Not posing. Just smiling. That scared me. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands folded in my lap, trying to calm the rush of thoughts. What does this mean? Is this just curiosity? A phase? A fantasy? But the more I questioned it, the clearer one thing became. This didn't feel like escape. It felt like honesty. I stood again and dimmed the lights slightly, changing the atmosphere. The room softened. Shadows blurred sharp edges. In that gentler glow, I felt safer, less exposed, more present. I spoke out loud again, testing my voice, not changing it, just listening to it differently. Softer. Slower. This is me, I said. The words settled into the room instead of bouncing away. I explored further, carefully, respectfully. How I sat today. How I stood. How I reacted when I caught my reflection unexpectedly. Each discovery sent a quiet thrill through me, not excitement alone, but recognition. Time disappeared. At some point, I sank onto the bed again, staring at my hands like I'd never seen them before. They didn't look strange. They looked right. Like they belonged to the person I was finally allowing myself to be. A wave of emotion hit me without warning. Tears welled up, not from sadness, but release. Years of pressure I hadn't known I was carrying loosened all at once. I covered my mouth, breathing through it, afraid the sound of my own relief might give me away, even though I was completely alone. I didn't know, I whispered. I really didn't know. When I finally changed back into my usual clothes later that night, the difference was jarring. The fabric felt heavier. Rougher. Like stepping back into a shell that no longer fit quite right. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, one thought echoed louder than the rest. This wasn't just something I did. This was something I needed to understand. The days that followed felt like I was living in two overlapping worlds. On the surface, nothing had changed. I still woke up early. Still dressed the same. Still nodded politely at strangers and joked with coworkers. But underneath that routine, something new had taken root, quiet, persistent, impossible to ignore. I started planning without realizing it. Not big plans. Small ones. Careful ones. The kind that felt safer because they sounded harmless in my head. Just a little more time alone tonight. Just trying something new. Just seeing how it feels. Friday night became sacred. The moment I closed my door and locked it, a wave of relief washed over me. I didn't rush anymore. I no longer dressed out of nervous curiosity, I dressed with intention. I chose pieces thoughtfully, noticing how colors affected my mood, how certain fabrics made me feel calmer, more grounded. The mirror was no longer an enemy. It became a conversation. I watched myself change not just physically, but emotionally. My posture softened. My breathing slowed. I stopped constantly checking the door, stopped jumping at every sound. The fear was still there, but it was no longer in control. One night, as I adjusted my reflection, I realized something that made my chest tighten. I wasn't trying to look like her anymore. I was trying to look like me. That realization changed everything. The next step scared me more than all the others combined. Going outside. Not late night hiding. Not hood pulled tight and head down. Just stepping into the world as honestly as I could manage. I chose a quiet Saturday afternoon. Neutral. Ordinary. I told myself it was perfect because no one would care, but the truth was, I cared deeply. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys. I stood by the door for a long time, staring at the handle like it might bite me. My heart pounded so hard I wondered if my neighbors could hear it. You can turn back, I whispered to myself. No one will know. But I did know. And that mattered. The moment I stepped outside, the air felt different against my skin. Sharper. Colder. Real. Every sound felt amplified, the crunch of gravel, distant traffic, my own breath. I walked slowly at first, hyper-aware of every movement. Was I walking right? Standing out? Drawing attention? Then something unexpected happened. Nothing. People passed by without a second glance. A woman walked her dog. A man checked his phone. A car drove past, completely uninterested in me. The world didn't stop. I felt dizzy, not from fear, but from relief. At a small cafe, I hesitated before entering. My reflection in the glass stared back at me, steady and nervous at the same time. You've got this, I whispered. Inside, the smell of coffee wrapped around me like a familiar hug. I waited in line, rehearsing my order in my head, terrified my voice would betray me. Next, the barista said, smiling. Latte, please, I replied. She didn't flinch. Didn't stare. Just nodded and asked for my name. When she called it out minutes later, something inside me clicked. I took my cup with a quiet thank you and stepped aside, hands trembling, not because I was afraid anymore, but because I felt proud. I had done it. Each outing after that became a little easier. A bookstore. A walk through a park. A quick errand. Each one added another layer of confidence, another piece of proof that I wasn't doing anything wrong by existing this way. The anxiety didn't disappear, but it transformed. It became excitement. I started standing taller. Smiling more freely. Catching my reflection in windows and not immediately looking away. I felt present. Connected. Like my body and mind were finally working together instead of fighting each other. Still, I knew this couldn't stay a secret forever. The walls between my worlds were thinning, and I could feel a confrontation approaching, whether I was ready or not. And deep down, a question began to form. What happens when someone I know sees me like this? I should have known the balance wouldn't last. Every secret has weight, and the more confidence I gained, the heavier mine became. I felt it in small moments, hesitating before answering texts, double-checking locks, flinching when someone knocked unexpectedly. The freedom I was discovering came with a growing fear. What happens when these two worlds collide? The night it happened, I wasn't being reckless. I was comfortable. That was the problem. I just finished getting ready, adjusting small details in the mirror with the ease of someone who had done this many times before. My breathing was steady. My reflection felt familiar now, not shocking, not forbidden. Just me. I smiled softly at myself. And then the doorbell rang. The sound cut through the room like glass. My heart slammed against my ribs as time seemed to freeze. My first instinct was panic, pure, animal panic. I spun toward the door, mind racing, thoughts colliding. No. Not now. I wasn't ready. They can't see me like this. The doorbell rang again. Hey, a voice called from the other side. Familiar. Too familiar. I know you're home. My legs felt weak. I backed away from the door, pressing my hand to my chest, trying to slow my breathing. I scanned the room desperately. Where could I hide? How fast could I change? But the truth hit me hard and fast. There wasn't time. I stood there, staring at myself in the mirror one last time. The fear was back, sharp and overwhelming, but so was something stronger. Resolve. If I ran now, I'd spend the rest of my life running. I walked to the door, every step heavy, every breath deliberate. My hand hovered over the handle, trembling. This is the moment, I thought. This changes everything. I opened the door. The silence that followed was unbearable. Their eyes widened, not dramatically, not cruelly, but with genuine surprise. I braced myself for laughter. For shock. For rejection. None of it came. Instead, there was confusion. Curiosity. And then, softness. Oh, they said quietly. I swallowed hard, my voice barely holding together. I can explain. They shook their head gently. You don't have to. I didn't expect this. My hands were shaking openly now. I felt exposed in a way I'd never experienced before, like my soul was standing in the doorway with me. I didn't plan for you to see this, I admitted, tears threatening. I didn't even plan to understand it myself. They studied me for a long moment, then sighed, not in frustration, but in thought. You look happier, they said finally. Scared, but happier. That was it. The dam broke. Words poured out of me, messy, unpolished, honest. I told them about the mirror, the fear, the curiosity, the nights alone, the first steps outside, the relief of being seen by strangers who didn't know my past. I'm not pretending, I said, voice cracking. I think I've been pretending not to be this for a long time. They listened. Really listened. No interruptions. No judgment. When I finished, the silence returned, but this time, it felt different. They stepped forward and hugged me. Just like that. You trusted me, they said softly. That means something. My knees nearly gave out from the relief. That night didn't end with answers. It ended with honesty. With tears. With quiet laughter. With the realization that the worst thing I'd imagined hadn't happened. But I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. Because if I could be seen by one person, soon, I'd have to decide who I wanted to be seen by everyone. After that night, nothing could go back to the way it was. I tried, at first. I really did. The next morning, I stood in front of my closet wearing my old clothes again, staring at myself like I was meeting a stranger I'd outgrown. They still fit. They still looked fine. But something in my chest felt tight, like I was holding my breath without realizing it. The hug from the night before replayed in my mind. Not dramatic. Not hesitant. Just human. That single moment had cracked something open inside me. It proved what I'd been too afraid to believe, that being seen didn't automatically mean being rejected. Still, empowerment doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in waves. The first wave was fear. Raw and honest. What if acceptance stopped there? What if that hug was the exception, not the rule? I lay awake at night imagining conversations I hadn't had yet. At work. With friends. With family. My stomach twisted every time I thought about it. But underneath that fear, something else was growing. Pride. Not loud pride. Not performative. Quiet pride, the kind that settles into your bones and tells you to stand a little straighter. I started making choices differently. I stopped hiding my clothes like contraband. They had a place now. A drawer. A hanger. A right to exist. Every time I opened my closet and saw both versions of myself living side by side, I felt a strange sense of peace. I don't have to erase one to honor the other. I began opening up, slowly, carefully. One person at a time. Each conversation was terrifying in its own way, my heart racing as I waited for reactions I couldn't control. Some people surprised me. I kind of wondered. One friend admitted with a small smile. Another shrugged and said, "As long as you're happy, why should I care?" Not everyone understood. A few grew distant. A couple avoided the topic entirely. That hurt, but it didn't break me the way it once would have. Because for the first time, I wasn't depending on their approval to feel real. The biggest test came when I decided to stop compartmentalizing my life. I didn't announce anything dramatically. I didn't make a grand reveal. I simply showed up as myself, honestly and consistently. Sometimes softer. Sometimes stronger. Sometimes unsure, but always real. The first day I stepped fully into the world without apologizing for who I was, my hands shook again. Just like before. But this time, I didn't interpret the shaking as weakness. It was courage. I walked with intention. I met people's eyes. I let myself exist without shrinking. When someone stared, I didn't immediately assume judgment. When someone smiled, I let myself believe it was genuine. And something incredible happened. The world adjusted. Not instantly. Not perfectly. But enough to remind me that I wasn't fighting it alone anymore. I found community in unexpected places. Quiet nods of recognition. Conversations that didn't require explanations. People who understood without needing every detail. Each interaction stitched me together a little more. I wasn't split anymore. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't waiting for permission. I was living. One evening, I stood in front of the mirror again, the same one that once terrified me. I studied my reflection, noticing how relaxed my face had become. How natural my posture felt. How my eyes held something they never had before. Certainty. "I'm proud of you," I said softly. And I meant it. If you had told me once that a simple question, "What if I tried?" would change my life, I would have laughed it off. I would have buried it under excuses, under fear, under the idea that some doors are better left unopened. But the truth is, the most dangerous thing I ever did wasn't dressing like her. It was pretending I didn't want to know myself. Transformation doesn't always look like a dramatic reveal. Sometimes, it's quiet. Private. Loud with doubt and courage in equal measure. Sometimes, it starts in front of a mirror, with a shaking hand and an honest breath. If you're watching this and feeling that pull, that curiosity mixed with fear, know this: you don't owe the world a version of yourself that makes you smaller. You owe yourself honesty. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is look at your reflection and finally say, "I see you."